Today we're going to look at 7 reasons why Dave Ramsey's wrong. And we're going to take a look at a couple of different areas. We're going to understand, kind of break down where the philosophy, where some of the approach is just off. And we'll talk about each of these in some level of depth, but also want to make it fairly quick hitting. So stick around and we're going to take a closer look. So, point number 1 of why Dave Ramsey is likely wrong in some ways. The first is Dave's only looking really at half of the equation. He's very boisterous and very focused on looking at the expense side of the equation and hoping for rate of return on what's left over. So Dave's like, hey, you need to save, save, save. And quite frankly, there's nothing necessarily wrong with saving, but it's all for cutting down and living this really meager lifestyle in hopes of living nicely in a retirement scenario someday. And frankly, we may not get the someday. And so Dave's teaching us or trying to teach people to just continue to cut down on your standard of living today in hopes that you can save more later. The problem is he's not really solving the true money problem. And that money, there's only 2 sources of income, people at work and money at work. And once a dollar hits our hands, it can either be put to use, meaning that it's going to earn something going forward, or it can be spent and it's gone forever. And Dave misses that point. And this is where the concept of infinite banking makes a major difference, in that when a dollar flows in and it stays in your system forever, it now is earning for you forever, and you can still go and use that capital as you would see fit to live your life. And you don't have to necessarily live on beans and rice. I'm not saying you should live beyond your means, but you don't have to live in this scarcity type mindset all the time. So that really takes us to the second point, and that Dave's not focused on solving the banking function at all. He's telling you to save money and invest what you have left over. Like, that's it. And cut down your expenses as much as you can and then go live on what's left. He's not telling you to, he doesn't even let you know that there's a banking function that's happening all around you all the time and that other people are profiting from it. And that banking function is still there whether you pay cash or not, because every dollar you pay in cash for anything now is no longer working for you forever. So it is super important to understand that everything in life is financed. You either are going to pay interest to somebody else, a third-party institution, if you need to lend capital from somebody else, or you're going to give up the future interest that money could have earned you over the course of time. So in what Dave's teaching people to do is use a lot of cash, meaning give up all of that future potential earned interest for all these different purchases, and you're kind of left hoping that whatever you did save, and where in his case, wherever you put it at risk, does enough to help you get where you want to go. So with that, let's go on and move on to the third point. So my second point was really the second and third point, in that Dave's not focused on solving the banking function, and he's missing the opportunity cost of cash. So just quick reset there, in that he's missing the fact that there is an opportunity cost when you use cash. So let's move on to the next point, and that's Dave tends to claim that the infinite banking concept is some sort of scam or some sort of problem. And the reason for it is, like, he is so focused and dead set against whole life insurance. And it's all for misguided reasons. Almost every reason I ever hear him talk about is always focused on, keeping cash value, or he's also talking about really only working with stock life insurance companies, meaning that there is extremely slow growth that takes place within the whole life contract. And in the infinite banking concept, those of us, the authorized practitioners. We're using dividend paying mutual companies who have an extremely strong track record, and these companies perform extremely well for people. I was looking at a couple of different contracts just the other day, and some of them are producing, half or even as much as 70% of the total premium paid in the first year in cash value. Again, contract design is specific to each person and their situation, but I mean, that's usable cash value, future capital accumulation that's taking place in those contracts that you have access to. It's building an asset that is going to be there for you in perpetuity as long as you're alive, assuming you're the insured person. So it's really about capital accumulation. And Dave doesn't talk anything about capital accumulation. The only accumulation he's talking about is putting money in a place where you can't use it or can't touch it until you're 65, 70, or whatever it is. And by that time, what's your quality of life like? What did you miss out on? How many business opportunities did you potentially miss out on simply because it was locked away and you couldn't do anything with it? Like, that sort of stuff is real, and that happens. Another reason why he tends to miss the boat when it comes to infinite banking is he's only focused on the tool that's used and not thinking about the concept, the process. And infinite banking is a process. It's about controlling the flow of money that comes into your system, and then you have control how it flows out, and you benefit from it all along the way. And so many people miss that, all because they hear whole life insurance as the tool that's used, and all the misconceptions about it come into their mind, and they just dismiss it because they have the arrival syndrome. They think they know better than anything else, and this is just not true. In a situation with, speaking specifically about the dividend paying whole life insurance contract, just going back to the infinite banking concept for a moment, that's a company you own and control. So those fees, the different things that accumulate in any of those scenarios, actually are benefiting the profitability of a company you own, and it's coming back to you as well. So you're getting a portion of that profitability. Whereas in, a mutual fund or something like that, that's flowing away from you. It's flowing out of that system over time. And I think that the biggest point that a lot of times people think is they're trying to compare one thing versus another. I mean, you can't compare whole life insurance against an investment. It's not really the purpose between them. One of them is a protection product. One of them is an investment product. The difference with the infinite banking concept and dividend paying whole life insurance, when you use it the right way, it allows you to control the flow of money, and you still get to go do the mutual funds. You get to go do all the investments that you were going to do anyway. So, but your capital is controlled, is protected, and actually can provide a scenario where you earn even more than you would have earned had you just done the quote unquote buy term and invest the difference, as the Ramsey crowd likes to talk about. All right, getting into the last couple of points here. So Dave likes, very often you hear him mention his 12% mutual fund. He uses a big generalization of putting all of your savings into these different qualified plans with maybe a diversified approach with some different mutual funds. But let's be real. Mutual funds have loads of fees, and so do even ETFs. So if you are using a broker, you're using somebody, those assets under management are costing you just like any other product would. So there's no like free lunch where you don't get a product that doesn't have some sort of fee involved. Like, we live in a capitalist society. Well, mostly capitalist in some respects, but that's a different conversation. And in that scenario, there's going to be fees. There's going to be a fee structure. And if you can show me a mutual fund that does actual returns, a compound annual growth rate of 12%, please let me know, because I would probably want to explore that for myself. Problem is I haven't found one. So, I don't want to hear anything about average returns, because average returns are not what you're going to see in your actual portfolio. What you're going to see is actual growth, actual loss and the compounding effect of that, or the lack of compounding effect of that over time. So lastly, I will say that Dave actually does one thing well. So this isn't me hating on somebody at all. I think one thing that he does well is teach discipline. And quite frankly, a lot of people need financial discipline. And I would highly recommend that for anyone. If you're going to practice the infinite banking concept, you need to have discipline. So it is important. And I would highly encourage that for anybody. Does discipline mean that you have to live in a scarcity type mindset and put yourself in a situation where you're struggling or feeling like you're struggling on a day-to-day basis because you're not even eating good food simply because you're trying to save more? All the while you have loads of money flowing through your hands throughout the year, but you're not retaining any of it. Well, I hope that that's not the case. But again, I think the points Dave makes, they're well intentioned, generally speaking, enough, but it's just missing the concept. There is more to it than just one side of the coin. And that's often what he's looking at, is just one side of the coin. So as we wrap up today, I want you to see the whole picture. I want you to see the whole coin. And that includes all three sides: the front, the back, and the edge. And all too often that edge is missed. So if you want to learn more about that edge, if you want to learn more about some of these concepts and maybe why some of these talking heads aren't quite as maybe transparent as they could be, keep watching. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Please like and subscribe. I'd love to continue to provide great content like this for you. Talk to you later. Have a great day.